I'm Rohrich. I'm editor-in-chief of the Journal of Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery, and we're honored today to have two very special guests as we honor the 50th anniversary of the Baker Gordon Symposium in Miami. And today we have with us Dr. Tom Baker, the founder of the symposium, and Dr. Jim Stuzin, who needs no introduction, who has really chaired the meeting for the last
15 years.
15 years. So welcome today. It's an honor to be here with you. So Tom, tell us how it all started. How did you start this incredible meeting, and what was the impetus for that?
Well, I had a thirst to know more about cosmetic surgery, and there was very few places you could go. In fact, most of the teaching programs in plastic and reconstructive surgery did not have aesthetic training. So you either had to go and visit a professor to learn a procedure, and the idea occurred to me that if we could have a symposium where we could bring the professors and have live surgery with an interchange and an audience interchange, that it would be a better way to teach.
Right, and then your first meeting really was held in
1967,
and that was where you, and who was your first guest?
Our first guest was Tom Reese from New York and Salvador Castenares from Los Angeles.
And the format was primarily to do live surgery. You had them do tell and show.
It was tell and show, like your kids that did show and tell. We decided tell us and then show us.
Brilliant.
So the first meeting, we didn't have any television, but we built platforms around the operating table so that everybody could go to the operating room and see live surgery. The second year, we had black and white, which was not very good, kinescopes, and somewhere those are stored. I don't know where they are. But the third year, we put in color television, and that was really quite an improvement in the teaching ability of live surgery.
And is that when you actually could bring it and put it to a hotel, or was it still all around in the operating room?
No, it was all in the operating room.
Wow. And how many years did you do that?
For 8 or 9 years while we were still at the old Cedars of Lebanon Hospital in Miami.
And that was also around the time that the American Society of Aesthetic Plastic Surgery was born, was it not? Or?
Well, as Jim will recall, we were just conversing that the third meeting of the Baker Gordon Symposium in 1969 was held back to back with the first meeting of the American Society for Aesthetic Plastic Surgery.
In Miami?
In Miami. And we held, I had the privilege of giving the first paper at the first meeting. And
you were one of the founding members, of course.
I was one of the founding members, yes.
So Tom, tell us a little bit, why did the Aesthetic Society become back-to-back with Baker Gordon? How did Baker Gordon influence the formation of the Aesthetic Society?
Well, I think that there was a group of 18 founding members of us that thought we needed a bigger society to expose more plastic surgeons to a bigger meeting. But yet we still wanted to maintain the format of a small faculty, few subjects that we have to this day.
And to focus primarily on teaching aesthetic surgery.
Only aesthetic surgery.
So how has the program changed? I know over the years, and you know, you obviously saw it going from, you know, a small meeting to this world-class meeting that everybody wants to attend yearly. I mean, what made it so that it really has changed how plastic surgeons do cosmetic surgery today? All a tribute to you and then to Jim for keeping the tradition going.
I think the original format that we decided in the beginning was, instead of going to a major meeting as we do today and we hear 30 papers of 15 minutes each, and yes, we learn a little something, we thought that if we held a small faculty and say 2 or 3 subjects like rhinoplasty, augmentation, or so on, and exhaust that. And I believe that we had a format that holds to this day, that the attendees at the meeting can actually go home and implement something into their practice.
Right.
And how important do you think the interaction is between the audience and the surgeon doing live surgery. Do you think that is a
think
big
that-
part of the meeting?
I think that's a big part of it. We have it set up, of course, that we have telephone conversation with the gentleman or lady doing the surgery. And if we see something in the procedure that, wait a minute, we don't understand that, we just tell them, show us that again. We don't understand why you're doing that. And there's an interchange that's live, and the pressure on the operating physician is often pretty great.
Right, it's where the rubber meets the road. And I think the other thing the Baker Gordon meeting has done is that it has truly accelerated the advances and innovations in cosmetic surgery. You and now Jim have always taken things that were coming out or that are hot and needed to be exposed and broadened and bring them to Baker Gordon.
Well, Jim, I think that's what we do even to this day. We try to find something. I remember Radovan and tissue expansion.
Right.
Well, everybody thought, Radovan, what tissue expansion? I remember when lasers came out. I remember when liposuction came out.
Open rhinoplasty.
Open rhinoplasty. And we had all of those things early on in the teaching.
That nobody would actually even publish. Right. I remember Jack Sheen talking about that, and you brought Jack Sheen in.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that, because when I first met Jack Sheen, he said to me, Tom Baker made my practice because I could not get a paper in the White Journal published on rhinoplasty. I had to publish on blepharoplasty until Tom Baker invited me to Baker Gordon.
Well, I recognize that Jack Sheen really was a pioneer in surgical techniques, rhinoplasty. And I remember several of the interesting things that happened. That we had him there with Jack
Gunter?
Yeah, with Jack, and we would get him on the program, and one did open rhinoplasty and one did closed, and that argument, I think, exists to this day.
It really does.
But it was interesting to have Jack here because he really was a pioneer in teaching of aesthetic surgery, and his book proves that.
Well, you know, one of the things I've always admired about you is you seem so good at picking the talent to bring to Baker Gordon, and those people you picked ended up being kind of the pioneers or innovators or the leading educators in aesthetic surgery. If you look at the previous faculty, it consists of everyone who's really contributed to the field. How did you pick it? How did you find that talent and bring them to Miami?
Well, a lot of it had to do with going to all the different meetings, the association meeting, plastic and reconstructive surgery meeting, the aesthetic society, and listening to papers and figuring, is this person somebody we would really like to have? And then investigating their background and what they had published and done, and then we would invite them. And it's interesting that in all the years we had this meeting, I only had one person that refused to come to the meeting. And I can relate the story because I called this individual who did a lot of rhinoplasties, and here was the conversation. Tom, I only did 250 rhinoplasties last year, and I really don't think I'm properly qualified to teach it. And he wouldn't come.
I know who that is. But you know, I think he had an incredible talent to actually make or break people in plastic surgery because of their innovations or not, and I think that's unique. And your mentee has done a great job in doing that too, Dr. Stuzin.
Dr. Stuzin brings, he picks talents too. He really knows how to find
He
people.
does.
I picked a talent.
He picked a talent, and you picked a talent. So tell us about some of those memorable moments. And you know, you don't have to mention names, but you know, there's been some memorable moments. I've only been part of the meeting of the last 10, 12 years, but
Well, we can mention a couple of names.
I
People who are
think
deceased.
It's fun.
One of the, you know, when you're looking at television on a 12 or 15-foot screen and the camera is zoomed in on rhinoplasty, you've got a 12-foot nose there. And I remember Tom Reese is doing a beautiful rhinoplasty, and then all of a sudden the Joseph elevator comes right out through, and the audience goes, and nothing. And it turned out the patient healed well, actually without any official scars.
And he's, of course,
And we had
phenomenal surgeon.
I remember Fernando Ortiz one night. You tell that story.
Oh, boy, that's a classic one. Where Ortiz Monasterio, I mean, because I've looked at the video, because when I first went into your practice, one of the first cases I did at Baker Gordon was a cranial bone graft. So I looked at Ortiz's cranial bone graft, and he's doing it, and he's doing it. The next thing he knows, he's taking both inner and outer table, and you have Jack Sheen and George Peck in the audience, and everybody's looking at Dura. And in a cosmetic surgery meeting, that's probably not what you want to show. And he throws a lap pad on it because he thinks no one can see. Because he doesn't realize the magnification. And then Jack Sheen goes, "Fernando, what is that?" And he goes, "It is the meninges." And he splits the calvarium and he puts it back in, and he does his calvarial bone graft. He was very cool. It was like nothing.
Surgeon that he was.
I could actually write a book about things that have happened interesting at 50 years in this meeting. I remember another classic incident was one of the leading facial plastic surgeons, not a facial plastic surgeon, but a surgeon who does principally facelifts, made a statement at his presentation on Tell and Show that he rarely ever had a hematoma. Guess where I was at 3 o'clock the night after he did the surgery? In the operating room, taking care of his hematoma.
Yeah, it's amazing. So tell us, let's fast forward to today. So what do you think the role is, and where do you think the Baker Gordon meeting is heading today? I'd like you to comment on that, and then also Dr. Stuzin.
Well, I think we're going to continue the same format, because the individuals who attend the meeting, and we limit it to 500 people every year because that's the size of the auditorium. But I think that, combined with the subject matter that we take and how we have the interchange, these people sitting in the audience really can feel like they're talking to the surgeon. They are. Yeah. And they're taking something that they can say, "I saw that, and when I go back to my practice, I know how to do that." Jim?
I think what we have today is we have not only the ability to show the live surgery, but we also incorporate a lot of video with the live surgeries, because there's parts of surgery that are kind of dull or not didactic, but there's always something for the audience to focus on. And I think what we've really tried to do, and I appreciate Rod's help in the meeting, is we tried within every procedure to distill not only the essence of the technique that's being showed, but its aesthetic cause and effect. So the people leave the auditorium not only knowing how to do something, but they understand how it's going to look once they add that to their armamentarium. And so one is the clarity of the education and quality of the education. And the second thing is then you have to distribute it, because when you started it, you were confined by, you could only get this information if you came to the meeting. But now with the use of the White Journal, we're putting these edited videotapes on the web, and they're globally accessible. And we look at the views on the White Journal website, and these are the most commonly viewed videos in the White Journal library, because people want to know how to do aesthetic surgery from the experts. And that's a tremendous contribution, because not only have you educated thousands of plastic surgeons at the meeting, but now you're educating thousands every year globally.
Right, and because plastic surgeons, we're visual. That's what we do, and the millennials, the people that are going to be inheriting plastic surgery, they're very visual, and they like it in snippets, which is what, Dr. Stuzin is so great to do for all of these great meetings. You're taking small vignettes of these surgeries and taking them to 4 to 6 minutes. That's what people want to do the night before surgery, the day of surgery. So where do you see, you've been at, obviously, you've seen everything in plastic surgery. So where do you see us going in the next 10, 15 years based upon where we've come from? I know it's all becoming more minimally invasive, but give us your thoughts on that.
That's a big part of it, minimally invasive surgery. I think there's so much research on the horizon, particularly with stem cell research, things we don't know about. I think we'll see the day when we can transplant any kind of tissue in the body that we can't do now because of the rejection phenomena. The horizons are endless.
Jim, you agree?
I agree. I think it's a very exciting time to be doing aesthetic surgery, and I like how the field is broadening into the concept of aesthetic medicine, encompassing both surgical and non-surgical alternatives. And I foresee a day when it's beyond plastic surgery. It's its own specialty.
I'd like to back up just a little bit, because I think one of the objects that I had and Gordon had when we started this, aesthetic surgery was really not very well accepted by the public. There were fantasy stories about cosmetic surgery being done in the dungeons of Hungary or New York in the back. Even the program directors didn't teach it. And I think that the Baker Gordon Symposium planted the seed which made aesthetic surgery become acceptable to the public and to those of us who are in the teaching.
I totally agree, Dr. Baker, because I think now today it is not only acceptable, it's mandated to be a board eligible and then as a board certified plastic surgeon. What you have done, and Dr. Stuzin, you've not only mandated in the American Board of Plastic Surgery and the RRC, now we've upped that to make sure that there's increased requirements to do it, that for every training program in the United States. And that's really a tribute to what you've done and what Jim has continued. And so I salute both of you for that. And I think also your meeting has, given back so much, which really, not only as a plastic surgeon but as a physician, you've given back, which is a rare thing to see.
It's a great feeling, and I know Jim shares this, that we've had the ability to give the knowledge and to so many people that can then go and teach others.
Right. It's so much better to give than to receive. Yes. Okay, so some other closing comments, Jim, and then Dr. Baker?
Well, I just want to go back to the beginning. Was the Baker Gordon the first meeting in aesthetic surgery in the United States? Was there any predecessor before what you did?
I know of no other.
And was there any global interest in?
Well, there wasn't the first year, but the first year the only mail out we had was to the members of the ASPRS, so that we didn't even advertise.
How many people did you have?
35.
35 came to the first Baker
To the
Gordon.
first meeting.
35, and was by mail.
And it was only by mail,
1963.
and only to the ASPRS. The second meeting we had 70 or 75, I don't remember, and it just kept growing until we had to move out of Cedars Hospital because we could only have 200 people there, and this is before we even had exhibitors or any of that, and it just grew and grew and grew, and there's still a great demand for attendance at our meeting.
And do you think, now that it's become respectable, do you see a time when universities are actually going to embrace the need to bring aesthetic medicine, aesthetic surgery into their training?
Well, I think that's already started. If you look at several of the programs, the program directors have made that an integral part of their teaching.
Yeah, they have, and I think, we've come a long way, and yet we have a long way to go. But really, again, thanks to you, Dr. Baker and Dr. Stuzin, for this amazing meeting. And on behalf of the Journal of Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery, we're honored to have this fantastic interview with them on the anniversary of the 50th Baker Gordon meeting.